I am fascinated by multi-sided markets. So what we're seeing is all sorts of established old companies and some new companies are coming out trying to find ways to create value for not just themselves, not just their customers, but also for their indirect value chain, right? So for developers, and sometimes developers at multiple levels, software and hardware innovations. What's interesting is that it's not just happening with Linux or with Microsoft or in the tech environment. We're seeing, Sears, we're seeing TD Ameritrade, we're seeing AT&T, we're seeing General Motors doing these crazy things and becoming software and technology companies. So they're trying to learn from what we've built, in the technology world about building a platform and creating win-win-win outcomes, right? These sort of collaborative, good results in better improving people's lives, making more money, right? Making things more efficient. That's really exciting for me. Well, there's a mix of addictions there, right? There's technology, there's the rate of change, there's learning from many new people. I think so many of us are knowledge and learning junkies, right? You just sort of love that ramp where you hit something new and your learning curve goes straight up and people are willing to share explanations of what's happening, and then they're willing to share the code that implements what's happening, which is amazing. One of the most inspiring books I've read in the last few years was by Robert Wright. He wrote a book called Non-Zero. And he said what has been the continual arc through human history is that we've found more ways to call more people self instead of other and trust each other, right? So there's this sort of game theory basis of non-zero positive sum games. The more people you can bring into a non-zero game, the better everything becomes. So for me, open source is sort of this very practical, measurable, demonstrable example of how this is really part of our evolving way of how we can treat each other and produce better outcomes. Software-defined networking, I think, is quite amazing. OpenFlow, in particular, obviously, as a technology and how that's going to impact Linux and open source. The opportunity to create all of the agility that we have in software down at what has been really a very rigorous, almost ossified layer in the network. Nobody's fault that it's ossified. It was built that way because at that time it was the only way that they could solve really hard problems. But opening that up to people who can write code in many different languages, come up with new ways to control the network, new ways to understand and represent it, there's a huge opportunity for just making everything that we're doing easier and faster, but also bringing in a whole new field of software engineers, developers, right, to start to participate and think about new ways we can use the network. So I'm quite inspired by that.